It's going to show the government that we're not kidding around here.
Tonight, an Alberta man who didn't see justice for his abuse is now going after the province in a multi-million-dollar lawsuit.
It's become a norm in my community to buy votes, mail-in ballots preferably.
A grassroots man traveled a long way to speak his truth to power.
Much of the policy is not governed by First Nations, it's governed by provincial entities.
And Southern Manitoba First Nations shut down a windy Winnipeg intersection to make a point. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. A former Alberta foster child is suing the government for $11 million, saying Alberta Child Services failed to protect him from a convicted sex offender who repeatedly abused him while in his care. APTN's Chris Stewart has the story.
The sexual abuse started when he was just 5 years old, and it happened on a weekly basis for 5 years. That abuse turned Stephen Morin to alcohol and drug abuse. He contemplated suicide. It will forever change his life. Morin's story was told on APTN Investigates in May. APTN's investigation discovered that his abuser, John Edward Beaver, had a conviction and 6-month prison sentence for possession of child pornography. Beaver was staying with Morin's stepmother in his home. Now, Morin is suing Alberta Children's Services for $11 million. He says they failed to protect him.
How could they have missed this man? If he was not a foster parent, how could they have missed this? If he was a foster parent, how could they again have missed this? Time and time again, they've missed it.
Morin says that the abuse continued to escalate.
And this man came back into our home. And when he came back into our home, he continued to abuse us. But not only did he continue to abuse us, the abuse towards me severely accelerated in the most horrendous, disgusting ways you could think of.
Morin has a JSM, or Joint Settlement Meeting, next week with the province. He is hoping to come to a settlement to avoid long court proceedings. He wants others who were abused to follow in his footsteps and pursue legal action.
If all goes well in this JSM, we'll have set a precedent for other survivors like myself that come from the Child Welfare Department.
Morin is still a young man, not even 30 years old. He says his suffering has impacted his career aspirations. He wanted to be an archaeologist. He says that's never going to happen now. And he says the Alberta government needs to pay.
And if my lawsuit wins, then I'm hoping that setting the bar at $11 million is going to show the government that we're not kidding around here.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Enoch, Cree Nation.
It's not often that someone gets so fed up they hop in their car and drive to Ottawa demanding accountability, but that's what a man from a Manitoba First Nation just did. He wanted to see if anything can be done about the way elections are held in his community. APTN's Todd Lamoran met up with him on Parliament Hill.
Clarence Sumner and his dog Buzzy are a hit in front of Parliament as a complete stranger asked to take a selfie. But Sumner is in the nation's capital for a serious reason.
I want the leaders of this country to know I'm here. I want them to know that the leaders of my community have turned a blind eye and a deaf ear to trying to be honest and do things fairly.
He carries around a black binder. Inside, he alleges is evidence of money being exchanged for votes on the Panematang First Nation.
It's a norm. It's become a norm in my community to buy votes, mail-in ballots preferably.
Sumner is appealing the last election in 2017.
So there's a lot of mail-in ballots to be purchased, and that's how I believe that one of the reasons why our elections are rigged.
He successfully appealed his band's 2011 election, as then Aboriginal Affairs Minister Bernard Valcourt threw out the results and banned Chief Garnet Woodhouse from running. But Woodhouse went to federal court, which overturned Valcourt's decision in 2013.
Rather than being upset and getting mad at my leaders in my community, I decided to use that energy to good and physically bring myself here in my own vehicle.
Therefore, he drove to Gatineau, Quebec from Manitoba, parked across the street from 10 Wellington, where he spent the night, and met face-to-face with bureaucrats from Indigenous Services the next morning.
So I believe that the minister can better exercise his judgment if he was a part of if he could read some of the appeal.
Sumner didn't get to meet Indigenous Services Minister Seamus O'Regan, and no promises were made, but says he's willing to stick around Southern Ontario for the next 2 weeks.
I want my family and friends to know I'm out here. I'm out here because I believe that honesty will prevail.
He only has until September 16th for a successful appeal. That's when nominations begin for the upcoming Penamatang election. Paul Lamarand, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Fresh from the Federal Court of Appeal today, a ruling that will allow 6 more legal challenges to the Trans Mountain Pipeline. The court announced it will hear half of the 12 applications to appeal the government's decision to proceed with the pipeline. That ruling comes more than 2 months after Justin Trudeau announced Canada had fulfilled its duty to consult with Indigenous people and would soon have shovels in the ground. The Tsleil-Waututh and Squamish nations are among 6 parties who will have another shot at stopping the pipeline. We want to hear what you think. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/APTN News. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. With the Manitoba election looming, the Southern Chiefs organization, representing 33 chiefs from southern Manitoba, stopped traffic to draw attention to issues they say should be on the minds of voters. Grand Chief Jerry Daniels says the Southern Chiefs organization is not endorsing any of the parties in the election next week, but he and about 50 others blocked midday traffic for about an hour at the busy intersection of Portage and Main. And while he didn't come right out and say who to vote for, Daniels said progressive conservative policies aren't helping Indigenous people.
I've been involved for over 2 years now in negotiations and discussions within the regional office and with the province, and much of the policy is not governed by First Nations. It's governed by provincial entities and even business leaders who lobby to really get us out of industry and keep us out of there. And that's really been the struggle over the last many decades, and so we want to make sure that message is heard, that that's unacceptable.
The Greater Sudbury Police Service has unveiled a missing persons toolkit and resource guide designed specifically for Indigenous women and girls. Well, the guide aims to assist police in their investigations, but it's felt that it will also be helpful to affected families. CTV's Molly Frommer reports.
Not only will this new handbook be used by police, but it's also for loved ones of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
It's for the family members and the Indigenous community to know that we're trying to do that little bit extra because we know that that's needed. We have lost members of our Indigenous community. That's known to us.
After attending a conference in Winnipeg, Sudbury's police chief saw how the toolkit was being used in other cities and decided to bring the concept to Sudbury.
Every community is different, and you hear that. But our community has completely different resources, completely different partnerships, completely different structure. I mean, there's some similarities between a police investigation in Saskatoon and a police investigation in Ottawa, but there's also complete differences with how we're structured. And so having it built here in Sudbury for people in our area, in this territory, is so important.
Indigenous leaders say they are encouraged, but Ontario's regional chief says there's a long way to go in terms of having women feel safe and protected.
I just read a report that 100% of First Nation people suffer from intergenerational trauma, and that's one of the key issues of why our women end up sometimes in higher risk situations or are at higher risk to be in situations of violence or to go missing, for example. So we have to go from where we are now to a place where our women are valued.
Archibald says this is a national issue and says with this toolkit and resource guide, she knows that in the future, when an Indigenous woman does go missing, that it will be treated the same way as anyone else. Molly Fromer, CTV News, Sudbury.
We've got to take a quick break, but there's more news ahead, and here's tomorrow's weather forecast. To the east coast, we've got 22 in rain in St. John's, 20 in rain in Charlottetown. 18 in rain in Happy Valley Goose Bay, and Ujuak is rainy and 7. Rouyn-Noranda is mostly sunny and 15. Sept-Îles is 15 as well. Sarnia and London and Toronto, sunshine and 21. North Bay is 19 and sunny. Kapuskasing is raining and 16. 20 for Sudbury and sunshine. 13 with a mix of sun and cloud up in Churchill. God's Lake is raining and 13. 15s for Barons River and Princess Harbour and some cloud. Swift Current, sunny and 23. Regina, sunny and 22. 18 in rain in Buffalo Narrows, 12 in rain in Stony Rapids, and raining and 17 in La Ronge. Welcome back. The world of drag was thrust into the spotlight with the hit TV show RuPaul's Drag Race. What used to be an underground art form has now turned into a mainstream phenomenon. In Winnipeg, Indigenous queens are at the forefront of drag culture. And new to the scene is one mother and son taking the city by storm. As Brittany Hobson shows us, the family who drags together stays together.
Your first performer is Olivia Limehart-Stein.
Meet Winnipeg's youngest drag queen. 10-year-old Ron Kickson is the young male force behind the city's newest, sassiest sensation.
My favorite name, I think, is Olivia, and it's going to be Olivia Strange. But then I came up with Olivia Limehart, and my drag mom is Prairie Sky, so it's Olivia Limehart Sky.
Ron has been performing as Olivia for the past 10 months. It started after watching the popular television show RuPaul's Drag Race, where contestants vie to be crowned America's next drag superstar.
That's how I learned about what drag is, and I saw a bunch of cool drag queens and performances and stuff.
Lip syncing is one of the ways queens show off their skills. To date, Olivia has performed 7 times. But it's not all lip syncs. In the drag world, young queens are often mentored by veterans to the scene. Olivia's first performance was with her drag mother, Prairie Sky. The two did a comedy routine where Olivia played a puppet. Ron says stage fright is no longer an obstacle.
Well, I was really nervous, before getting on stage. But then when I went on stage, it was, super fun.
Drag runs in this family. It's not just Ron exploring gender roles. His mother, Issa Kickson, recently started performing under the name Smokey Trickstar.
I think I always knew that I was, that I had a toughness to me. And I think there is something, very cathartic about putting makeup on as a man and just, owning it.
The comedian has spent a large part of their career working with the BIPOC, or Black and Indigenous People of Color community. So when Ron decided he wanted to do drag, there was already a welcoming family.
We're living in a time and age where that's possible, and I know as an Indigenous queer kid growing up in the 80s in Winnipeg, something like that wasn't possible or even heard of. So to have my 10-year-old be supported in doing this, not only from his parents, but from his family, his friends, his queer family, it's been an amazing journey.
Drag is tightly linked to the club scene, limiting possibilities for underage performers. But Kickson says the community has come together to create opportunities for Olivia.
So it's basically just a whole lot of queer folks getting creative and what we can do with shows, and where we can have shows, and who we can partner with.
And now Ron and others created a space for kids at his school.
There's a club that me and 2 other kids made, and the guidance counselor, called the Rainbow Lunch Club. And it's about like the LGBTQ plus community. And there's like a bunch of people who joined.
Watching Ron transform into Olivia has been a rewarding experience for Kixon. They say Olivia gives Ron the chance to explore other sides of his identity.
The confidence and like this toughness, where she kind of, she owns you. Like while she's on stage and you're watching her, she owns you. And to watch a 10-year-old do that and to create so much power, wow.
As for Ron, he hopes to do drag for as long as he can. And he has this message for other future young queens.
Well, like, if you really want to do drag, then just do it.
Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Take another break, but when we come back, a book about treaties written by a 9-year-old. And here's the rest of Thursday's weather. In northern Alberta tomorrow, we've got 19 and sunshine in High Level and Fort McMurray. 22 and sunny in Red Deer and Calgary. 26 and sunshine in Medicine Hat. 21 and sunny in Tofino. Lots of sunshine in Kamloops and 32 degrees. 18 and sunny in Dease Lake. 21 and sunshine in Fort Nelson. 18 and sunshine in Dawson City. Mayo's 19 and sunny. Norman Wells is rainy and 14 and rain in Wattie and Yellowknife as well. Tuck is in at 12 and mostly cloudy skies. 13 and sunshine in Colville Lake. 4 and some flurries in Cambridge Bay, mix of sun and cloud, and 6 in Baker Lake. Arctic Bay is sunshine and 5, Resolute 0 and mostly sunny skies. Pangertung is 10 and sunny. Welcome back. Every year, Skills Canada brings together youth learning trade skills and has them compete. To get there, you need to win your provincial or territorial qualifier. Our Kent Driscoll met up with the Nunavut students trying for first place. Here's an encore presentation of that story.
Skills Nunavut has taken over Inukshuk High School in Iqaluit, and the place is humming with activity. Each of these Nunavut teams is trying to finish first in their competition and win a trip to Halifax for the Nationals. Whether you're into sewing, learning to cut hair, or just trying to get your robot to work, it's a chance for you to try out the trades and see what they like. Ricky Ukalik and Zedekiah Samurtuk are from Whale Cove, Nunavut, a small town even by Nunavut standards with just over 400 people. They're here for television production, and they've learned the first lesson. Watch the clock.
That they have to learn how to edit quickly and stuff like that.
Each team made their own video, and they chose the topic themselves. This is the one the Whale Cove boys made to take the bronze medal.
Stand up to bullying. Stand up to bullying. Stand up to bullying.
Silver went to these young women from Arviat. Their story was about them coming up with a story. And gold went to a combined team effort from Joe Haven and Iqaluit for this strong statement of supporting each other.
What if someone hurts me? Nobody is going to hurt you. You have no reason to be afraid.
These two would recommend any of their peers try video production.
Tell them to try it out and give it all they could give and have fun.
There's also travel, and the things you get to do when you travel. Iqaluit has a movie theater. Whale Cove doesn't. Did you guys get to see Endgame while you were here?
Yes, it was definitely great.
Kent Driscoll, APTN National News, Iqaluit.
It's back to school, back to books, and there are many books about treaties, but now there's one written by a 9-year-old. Bella Morisseau won a national award for that work when she was in grade 5 to celebrate back to school. Here's another look at a story we showed you back in July, just in case you missed it.
It's like it's judging someone by their skin color or their culture.
She's not your typical kid. Her grandfather says she was an early talker, having full conversations at 18 months old. Bella Morisseau picked up reading quickly, and not long after, began writing stories.
I really like writing ever since I could get pen to paper. That was I think I started writing when I was 3, and I would write every day. Graduating?
Her stories were mostly about fairy tale characters. In grade 4, her teacher suggested she enter a speech competition. She wrote about Treaty 6 and her experience living on reserve at Saddle Lake Cree Nation. She called her speech Honor the Treaties. Bella's grandfather Merle says her speech had a profound impact on the audience.
We went to Elk Island, we got in front of 400 people, and she gave her speech. And the room went quiet. I had people behind me, directly behind me, simply say, I didn't know this is the way it was.
Bella talked about living in a house with black mold, inadequate education, and access to proper health services. She told the crowd that Canada did not live up to their end of the treaties.
You have a 10-year-old saying, the residential school system caused all this. It caused all this pain. These are 10-year-olds. I'm thinking a 9-year-old little girl is simply open up eyes, open up potential to talk, and simply say, how do we make things better?
Her speech won. An elder suggested she enter the 2019 UNESCO Indigenous Child Author Competition. In just 4 days, she expanded her speech into a 1,500-word book.
So every day I would spend 3 to 5 hours in my room writing, and then I give each chapter to my papa, and he would type it on his computer.
Bella took home the Silver Award at Government House in Victoria, accompanied by her brother Cashton and her grandfather.
Before my name was even called, I was shaking, and I was holding on to my papa, and I was very excited. And when I heard that I got silver, I was very happy.
Her book will be published in 6 languages. She's already working on her next book. She wants to call it Cinderella and the Not-So-Evil Stepmother. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Bonnyville, Alberta.
That's definitely a girl that we should keep an eye on as a future leader. Well, that is your news for this Wednesday. Download the APTN News app on your mobile phone if you haven't done that already to stay up on all of our news. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.